Good sticks, everyone. Welcome to the Captain Avalanche Fancast, your unofficial source for all things Colorado Avalanche hockey and more from a fan perspective. Hosted by me, Captain Avalanche Corey, and our Aquarium annual pass holder, Dom. Now, we're no insiders. We're not inside the locker room face-to-face with our favorite players, but we hope to create a relatable and welcoming environment because we're just like all of you listening, fans. Fans with a deep passion for the game of hockey and, in this case, the Colorado Avalanche. Dom, we're already on episode 6, which maybe in the grand scheme of things doesn't seem like a lot, but the fact that we've managed to keep this going consistently for 6 episodes, despite some ups and downs here and there, I think is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, I'm so happy that we've been able to keep going with it and overcome the scheduling conflicts and the illnesses and all the other roadblocks. And hey, for those of you who don't know, but our episodes are finally up on YouTube now as well. So big successes all around for the podcast, and it's feeling more and more real every day.
Absolutely beat me to the punch for that good news. He is correct. Our podcast is now available on YouTube and everywhere else you get your podcasts. If for whatever reason you come across this from somebody else or on a different platform, and there's a platform that you prefer that you would like this podcast on, give us an email at captainavalanchepod1@gmail.com or leave it in a comment. We would be happy to try and accommodate to get our podcast everywhere where you want to listen to it. But otherwise, Dom, I think we will jump right in with notes from this week around the NHL. There was some goofy stuff that happened that I'd love to share. So if anyone keeps up with the NHL at all outside of this podcast, it's likely you've heard about this because it's been reported about to death and by everyone because it was honestly so unbelievably weird, and I was lucky enough to actually witness it happen live in the game. One of the few moments that I have never witnessed in my years of watching hockey. During the Lightning and Wild game, 2 pucks ended up on the ice at the same time. It was a puck left behind the net from a previous play, and originally the play had been blown dead because the puck went up into the netting. It settled behind Andrei Vasilevskiy, and for some reason, no one ever went and got it, and it sat there for a while. Finally, Marco Rossi on a charge down the ice was chasing a puck, and it ricocheted off the back wall, but instead of continuing to go after that puck, to go back a little bit, Marco Rossi was chasing a puck down the ice and nearly had a breakaway, but was defended by a Lightning player who then sent that original puck down the ice and around the boards, but Rossi instead took the stagnant puck from behind the net and tucked it in between Vasi's legs, and he seemed to be the only one who knew. Vasi didn't realize it. Nobody else realized it except for Rossi. Obviously, the goal did not count.
Sounds like a cheeky play, and, with all the video review and things we have in the league these days, I don't think he could get away with that one. However, maybe 10 years ago, maybe, who knows? Maybe he could have gotten away with it.
It was definitely an odd one because, yeah, it was an odd play just overall. So it was just funny to see. But obviously Rossi was throwing his hands up like, what the hell? But I think the Wild still ended up winning that game anyway because they've honestly been kind of good to start the season. Well, speaking of goaltenders, because Vasi, goaltender. Dom, I know we've pumped this guy's tires a few times, but I recently came across a stat, I forget which game, that Lucas Dostal has the most high danger saves at the time of this recording, or at the time when I saw the stat, so far at 71 high danger saves. Peter Mrazek is in 4th, and I don't believe it was very close between 1st and 2nd place. Lucas Dostal is having himself a year.
Absolutely. We've talked about Dostal a few times, and you know what? We will keep talking about him so long as he keeps showing up. We always are on the lookout for new goaltending talents, and it feels like we've talked about how inconsistent it can be sometimes from goaltenders. So to see him being so young and so consistent early on, he seems like the bright light for the future who could be anchoring the Ducks as they look to come back to relevance here.
No freaking kidding. I'm trying to figure something out real quick, see where he
Well, while we
stands.
speaking of goaltending, I'll give all of us online an update that I am also with the Sharks game on live in the background, so I will give you some updates here and there. But when we talk about the Wild, how about the Wild goalie in his final season, Marc-Andre Fleury? He will be getting the start tonight against the Sharks. And yeah, the Wild have been off to a great start this year. I know I was a naysayer and a pessimist, and I had no faith in them, but they currently rank second in the Central, I believe.
Well, that is good to hear. Oh gosh, I'm trying to figure out how to figure out the stat. I want to figure out Lucas Dolstar compared to the other goaltenders of the NHL to see where he currently sits.
Is there a particular stat you want to see I could find for you?
I just want to see him like, here we go. This is what I want. Yeah. So Lucas Dostal, amongst all goaltenders updated today, is number 1 over Igor Shesterkin. He currently is leading the league with an expected goals against of 36.67 and a goal save above expected of 11.7.
Not to mention the third best save percentage in the league at .930 and allowing only 2.5 goals per game with, again, not the best defense in front of him in Anaheim.
Yeah, pretty remarkable. But we'll get back to Lucas Dostal actually here in a little bit. But to move to another game, Anze Kopitar banked a pass off of UC Saros's ass from behind the net to break the ice on scoring in the first period of the Kings and the Predators game. On that same night, 11-4, both home teams, the Oilers and the Preds, were shut out by their opponents in identical scores, the Devils and the Kings, 3-0.
Well, when we talk about Saros, we've both talked about how he doesn't always get enough recognition, but I think sometimes that is the only way to score against him is to throw it in off his back, you know? He's really good at keeping things in front of him, outside of the net. Obviously not the perfect night in this case, but seems like the only way to get some things started against a goaltender of his quality.
And, I think unfortunately for Saros, he's had a bit of a rough time so far this year. I'm currently navigating Instagram because I'm trying to find...
Stat-wise, I think you're probably right, but I think when we talk about some goaltenders as well, I'd be interested to see how many high-danger chances he's had to face because the Predators have been a letdown across the board. Their offense hasn't been showing up. Their defense certainly has not been helping Saros enough. So I think that's a factor, too, that must be worth considering. And I do acknowledge, though, he does seem to be in a bit of a slump compared to what maybe you or I expected going into the season. So hopefully he can pick it up here and have maybe even if it's not until the new year, have a fresh start to the new year.
You're exactly right. And it's really weird that I think we've seen a trend this year with goaltenders signing these big new contracts. Saros did it, Swayman did it, and they've kind of, or also Olmark, and they've all kind of come out as duds at the start of the season. I mean, Boston as a whole is kind of falling apart. Does that make me sad one bit? Not in the least. However, it is interesting that we get these guys getting paid so much, and yet all of a sudden they get the big contract and they're like, now I can play like shit. And I'm not saying that by all means any of those guys are shit. I like all of them. I like goalies a lot. But you know who hasn't played like shit? Igor Shesterkin, who was offered the highest goalie contract of all time and said no thank you, and then has proceeded to show why he deserves to get paid as much as Leon Draisaitl. Pretty ridiculous.
Well, and we will say that I think in contract years, or when any player in any sport is trying to get a contract, they seem to just overperform expectations. That is the year to show up and to justify getting money, to justify the asking price. But the case is sometimes you'll see that next year regression where they can relax. They can be like, whoo, I got that money. I don't have to work so hard. I don't have to be so stressed. And sometimes that can lead their play to drop off. Also, speaking of play dropping off, I don't know about dropping off, but the Wild have opened the scoring with an early goal 2.5 minutes into the first period, thrown to the front of the net off of a Sharks defenseman's skate. I don't have the name or number just yet. Actually, it looks like it is off One of my favorites, as everyone knows, it looks like Will Smith's skate redirected that first goal into the net.
Oh, no.
So the Wild take a 1-0 lead. But later tonight, I'll be happy to sing Will Smith's praises. So this is not me disparaging him. It's just me telling you the facts in live time as I see them on my stream.
I was going to say very good. No, that's not very good. Well, I had a fun thing. So I've come across some Instagram memes that also included some fun stats for the year. This was posted 5 days ago, so some of them are obviously have already changed, but I thought at the time of coming across them, some of them were pretty insane. So I have 14 quick rapid fire stats for you, Dom. Here we go. So McDavid and Matthews' points combined totaled 20. Kirill Kaprizov's points alone at this time was 21. The Bruins' 2024 and 25 record was 4-6-1. The last time the Bruins were under 500 at any point in a season was October 3rd, 2018. Kyrou Buchnevich and Thomas's combined goals are at 6. Ivan Barbashev is at 7. The Capitals' goals for per game last season was 2.63 for 28th in the league. Their goals for this season is 4.11 for 3rd in the league.
Really quickly on that stat, I have been shocked by the Capitals, and I would love to talk them up a little bit too, because I clearly underestimated them as another team going into the season, and they seem legitimate and mean business this year. But I'll let you get through the rest of your stats.
At the time of recording, the Predators had 3 wins on the season. The San Jose Sharks also had 3 wins on the season.
Well, they're at 4 now, baby.
The Devils' point percentage and place in the league standings is .571 points percentage for 4th place, and the Canucks' points percentage and place in the league standings is .611 points percentage for 15th place. Evan Bouchard's points are at 6, while Philip Broberg's points are at 9. For those who don't know, Philip Broberg was on the Edmonton Oilers but was poached by the Blues, and obviously it's showing they made a good choice. The Golden Knights' record at home is 7-0. However, their record on the road, 0-3-1. Home
really
fighters.
Quick, I promised a friend of mine. Yes, I do have a friend in Vegas, so even though I'm a Sharks fan, I do know a Golden Knights fan, and I consider him a friend. Shout out to my good brother, my friend Rico. Love you, man. Hate your team, but it's not your fault, so I hope you continue to enjoy the hockey season.
It is your fault, Rico. You're rooting for the wrong team, brother. I'm sorry. Hughes and Crosby's points combined are at 24. Mikhail Granlund and Neil Pionk's points combined are at 26. McDavid has 3 goals. Dylan Holloway, also poached from the Edmonton Oilers by the Blues, is at 4 goals. Gabriel Landeskog's games played as an Avs forward since 2022 are 0. Oliver Chillington's games played as an Avs forward since 2022 are 1, now 2. He's a defenseman. Sorokin, this one's my favorite. Sorokin, Vasilevsky, and Hellebuck's goals saved above expected combined is at 12.5, while Lucas Dostal's saved above expected is at 13.6 alone. Mark Stone's combined points from the last 3 seasons are at 121. His point pace for this season is 141 in your dreams, Mr. Injured Reserve. And the most devastating one, Alexander Georgiev sat dead last, 71st in goals saved above expected, and as they listed, somehow still in the NHL. And then there is another player who I actually don't recognize who is 48th in goals saves above expected and is playing in the AHL. And that is my rapid fire stats from this hilarious Instagram post that I came across. But this was...
I don't know about a hilarious Instagram post, but I do have some stats for you as well.
I love stats. I'm a stats guy. I also just sent you a Sharks meme that I have been meaning to send you, so I just sent it.
Hold on, I have to watch this live. Oh yes, the 4-man guarding the empty net where the goalie is the furthest man from the net. This was in the middle of our absolutely breathtakingly poor loss in Las Vegas to the Knights, where that was a game of 7-3. And yes, Vanacek is further from the net than count them, three Sharks players in this meme. It is accurate and sad all at the same time. So well done, good sir.
So, brief fun fact before we get into your stats. I've learned that my younger brother listens to this podcast, and he is by no means a hockey guy by any stretch of the imagination, not even a sports guy, but he's really enjoying the podcast and learning more. And your discussion of the Sharks has left him utterly flabbergasted, might I say. He has no understanding of how a team could play the way that the Sharks do. So don't worry, we'll do our best to explain it at some point. But for now, the Sharks are improving from that original thing. But Dom, I'd love to hear these stats. I love stats, so give them to me.
Well, as I promised at the start of the year, I would cover and track the Alex Ovechkin goal count. And within the past week, he has scored, I believe, 2 or 3 goals. 2 of them came in one game, that much I know. So he is currently at 8 goals thus far in the year and 16 points, making him only 34 goals away from surpassing the great one, Wayne Gretzky's record, and it increasingly feels like that he will be able to reach that milestone this year. If he continues his current pace, he is on pace for 55 goals, which would absolutely smash the record this season by over 20 goals. I'm not saying he will necessarily do that, but the man has been lighting it up from his spot in just outside that face-off dot, and lighting him up and just drilling him home where no goalie's got a chance.
Russian machine never breaks. And quick fun fact, saw a clip today that Alex Ovechkin had asked Wayne Gretzky for a game-used stick. Gretzky told Alex, if you win the Stanley Cup, I'll give you a stick. The day after Alex Ovechkin won the Stanley Cup, rather than celebrating the cup, he was calling up Wayne Gretzky for that stick.
Hey, I would do the same thing. I think, we talk about how hard it is to win the Stanley Cup, but the added benefit of getting a stick from the great one himself in a bet with that man, I feel like that in some way has even more value. So good on you, Alex.
What else you got, Dom?
The other stat, I told you I tracked both of them for this year, so we got the old guys together. Crosby is currently at 15 points with 3 game-winning goals this year in 14 games, so he's staying at just above 1 point per game. This would project him for 88 points on the year, just shy of what he needs to reach that third consecutive 90-plus point season. So everyone out there, Philadelphia is struggling, Pittsburgh is struggling, the whole state of Pennsylvania is really struggling when it comes to hockey. So send your good vibes to our good friend, Mr. Crosby. We support him, we love him. He is a one-of-a-kind player from this generation, and we are not to see his like again soon, so we hope he continues to stay in the league for a while and continues to put up 90-plus point seasons, because it is quite amazing to behold, if I do say so myself.
Now, we don't have to get too in the weeds on this question. I think it'd be fun to do when we don't have much else to talk about, but just real quick, yes or no? Let me see. Do I want to phrase it this way or this way? Nah, I think I'll do it this way. Crosby, top 5 player of all time.
I would say yes.
I would say yes also. For those of you out there, Crosby is also a best friend of Nathan MacKinnon. So if you're an Avalanche fan, you should be a Crosby fan.
Well, if you want another fun fact, I'm ready to give you a Sharks one. They're actually showing it on the screen live. Vitek Vanacek became the first player since the 80s to have over 49 saves and 49 or more saves in an OT game and have an assist on a goal. For those who don't know, I'll cover it later, but he did actually have an assist on one of the Sharks' goals earlier this week against Columbus. He played lights out, like I said, with 49 saves in a 2-1 OT win that I'll cover more later. And a final Sharks fun fact before we proceed with our regularly scheduled programming, if you will. Barclay Goodrow, the current and former Shark, has 1 goal scored on the season. And Corey, would you believe it? It is in fact a short-handed goal. So he's not able to score 5-on-5 or 5-on-4 with the power play, but apparently 4-on-5. Throw Barclay Goodrow out there, and that's when he's best able to score.
Hey, they don't ask how, they just ask how many, Dom.
Amen to that, brother.
All right, well, we'll go ahead and jump right into everything you need to know about the Avalanche. We had 2 games on the docket. And in fact, I actually finished a third, the Avalanche and the Jets, because we had to delay our recording to today on Thursday. So I actually finished that game. I don't have notes on it, but I think I can give an immediate reaction here at the end. But first, I actually wanted to address the Avalanche's November schedule. It is a doozy. As I've already told you, Avalanche fans, we just need to survive till at least November 15th, and we'll get those valued reinforcements. But here's how the schedule's shaping up. Going back to the Nashville game, it was Nashville, that's hit or miss. You don't know if we're going to get good Nashville or, well, Smashville. Seattle, which was whatever. I was at that game. It was a great time. Winnipeg, oof. Carolina next, oof. Nashville again, LA Kings, oof. Washington, oof. Philadelphia, Washington again, oof. Florida, oof. Tampa Bay, oof. Vegas, oof. And then to end off the month, it is a back-to-back with Dallas and then Edmonton.
Wow. Just wow. Yikes. Wow.
So it is a tough November for the Colorado Avalanche, especially with everything that seems to be going wrong. But thankfully, everybody, things are looking up right now. Again, as I mentioned, it's just about weathering the storm. But man, the Avalanche were not given an easy schedule to try and accomplish that feat. But they're remaining competitive, and that's all I can ask for. Well, I have first my notes for the Predators game, and I'll just run it down here. I can't be mad at a period where the Avalanche managed to not have any goals against in the first period specifically. And once again, Justus Annunen looked great. Honestly, even though we didn't score in that first period, I was just happy that we didn't give up 10 right away. So honestly, I try and find the positivity wherever we can. But to follow that, Cale Makar cannot be stopped. I say it probably
hail Cale
every episode, and unfortunately, him and McKinnon streaks were snapped tonight with the shutout to Winnipeg. But man, just showing no signs of slowing down. And I mean, the funny part is, it wasn't even the first time this week that Cale Makar couldn't be stopped. But it's just honestly every single day. Now, even though the Preds walked away with the lead in that second period, the Avalanche were doing everything right. Sustained zone pressure, great puck luck, nifty passing, solid defense, and back check. They just couldn't get it past Saros more than once, and that's mainly because the men in front of him are swarming rebounds and the puck carriers. And the second goal, Juice couldn't do anything about it. I believe it was a double redirect, a double doinker, so I really don't hold that against him. But with that being said, it showed that Mikko Rantanen could not buy a goal up to that point, although he finally got one and then almost got it taken away against the Kraken, which we'll talk about more here in a little bit. However, once we made it to the third period, the offense really seemed to vanish from the Avs throughout the first 10 minutes. They were defending really well and making sure that if they made mistakes that they fixed them. But again, it just wasn't finding the net. Now, a criticism, which I'm sure he's going to come to my house and beat me up for saying this. Oh, wait, nope, it's not the criticism yet. Different point. I've noticed McKinnon in all games has been defended heavily. This is not a revelation or anything, but it feels like teams have been riding him extra hard. That's what she said. And sending 2 or 3 guys after him. And yet he still has his point streak. If they want to stop him from scoring the goal, fine, but he'll find a way to slip it to somebody who can. That's just his remarkable ability. Now, I'm convinced that UC Saros has the ability to fucking teleport. There have been multiple almost goals where the Avs have gotten opposite Saros, and suddenly he just seems to be there. I don't quite know what was going on in that game, but I'm fairly certain that, of course, after all of his struggles, Saros decided to finally show up against the Avalanche. But so many pucks were let go by Saros, and they were just sitting in front that just couldn't be finished. Very similar to the Lightning game in that we were out shooting the opponent, generating offense, but the finishing power wasn't there. However, this Predators team, to me, didn't feel nigh unbeatable, and it didn't feel like the Avalanche were ever fully out of it. And I saw some differing opinions from other Avalanche news outlets, but from my own standpoint, I personally felt differently.
Yeah, well, I think the Predators are an odd one because they are currently last, and yes, I am saying last in the entire West. Yes, I love my team. Did I think the Sharks would ever be ahead of the Predators at all this season? Absolutely not. And yet, that is the case we find ourselves in, where both teams have 4 wins in 14 games, but the Sharks do have 1 extra point from an OT loss. So it is wild and wacky. The Predators, they are that team, I feel like, who we have to adjust our expectations a little bit until they get more in a groove. But if there is a team that could win on any given night against any quality of opponent, I think ultimately that's the team that we would look at, who they are going to play to their opponent. If they have a really good opponent, a team like the Avs, the Oilers, Vegas, Winnipeg, Minnesota, they might actually look a little competitive against some of those teams. But against other teams who are not as good, in my opinion, Seattle, Chicago, Chicago's in a rebuild. We acknowledge that. Anaheim, then those are like losable games for Nashville. So they're a bit of a conundrum and seeming to play better against the better teams, ironically.
I definitely think you are not wrong in that assertion. Now, a criticism against our Hart Trophy winner, which I obviously have every right to say this. Nathan MacKinnon, it felt in the Lightning game especially, and there were other instances that occurred before this, has continued to make, in my opinion, poor passing decisions. And I typed here, albeit for me to say shit about shit that I know nothing about. But so many of his passes, it seems, are going onto the sticks of the opposing team, and it isn't a situation where it's just good sticks and lanes from the other team. It's genuinely, Mac will be expecting a teammate to be somewhere, not check the lane, throw the puck, and it lands on the opponent's stick without them having to do anything extra to get it in the way. Again, albeit for me to criticize him and his passing, just look at how the Kraken game turned out, which we will touch on plenty here in a moment. This was obviously dated to when the Predators game happened, but it's just something that I had noticed, and it was getting a little frustrating that somebody of that caliber just seemed to, we'd get in the zone, we'd be setting stuff up, he wouldn't do a head check, he'd throw the puck across, and there would be an opponent just standing there. But I've never played hockey, I'll fully admit that, so I don't know anything. Nathan MacKinnon, if you ever hear this, you won't. Please don't hurt me. I love you. I'd love to have you on the podcast, so reach out.
You know what? Don't say he won't ever hear it then. Who knows? Maybe he will, and maybe someday we could get him on the podcast. And you know what I think it is he's so used to playing fast. He's so used to having those guys, those line mates of his who have been out and injured. So maybe it's not his fault. It's just adjusting to the new players on his line, adjusting to a new flow of game. He is so fast that sometimes maybe he isn't looking, or that's what makes him able to do the amazing things, is just that chemistry he's had and that ability to anticipate where the players on his team will be. So while we will acknowledge that it takes time to adjust. So perhaps I'm going to think optimistically and say that's the cause.
I do think you're correct in that, because of course he's still playing with Mikko and with Kale, but there have been obviously a general large amount of shifting of his line mates, and he's playing with a lot of new people every night. I mean, he usually has the ability to make anybody that he plays with better. However, I do think that would be one of the causes. Just something that I picked up on because it felt like it kept happening over and over again. But I have here after.
And really quickly, you did say make people around him better. He's clearly setting up the opportunity. So maybe it's not his job to adjust to them, but maybe it's the job of those other players who aren't normally on the Avs starting roster or as high up the line on the depth chart to step up and start stepping into those roles and see that is the place where they should be to maximize their potential to improve their goal scoring chances and their play overall. So I think it's a two-way street, but I know you have another point, so I'm going to let you get back to it.
No, I think you're 100%.
Oh, wait, hold on. I have to interrupt you again because Tyler Toffoli, right in the middle, just ripped one, and the speed of the glove from Marc-Andre Fleury. The man might be retiring this year, but oh my God, I thought that was a surefire goal, and he just snapped the glove and ate that one up from close range from Toffoli, who wound up and hit that one with a one-timer. Wow, that was impressive to watch.
Oh, goodness. Well, hoping the best for your boys. Well, right after I had typed that criticism about MacKinnon, he hit the nastiest backhand spin move to net the second goal for the Avs in the Predators game. I don't know if any goaltender of any caliber could have stopped it. I have never seen him score a goal like that. It's definitely not his typical style, but man, did it work, and man, was it crazy. But, oh man, that being said, I was a little emotional at the end of this game, and previous me's notes will tell you, I love, quote, I love that we do good shit like getting the game within one just to piss it down the drain. I tried to say earlier that when you, lose with a team full of talent like a healthy Avs, it hurts. But when your roster looks like the current iteration that played the Preds and the Lightning, it's whatever. To which I replied, I was wrong. This loss still hurts, and I don't like it. The whole thing about it, though, the positive that can be ultimately taken away is that the Avalanche are doing the right things. You bring guys back who know the system and know each other, and you're in good shape.
Yeah, absolutely. That is what you do, and that's why the Sharks brought back Barclay Goodrow for some leadership as well. So maybe not just the same system, coaching change and all, but you're exactly right about bringing players back that you know and that you can trust or that you believe in. And yeah, also very relatable for me, at least, if it's like, I know why the Sharks aren't doing great, but God, I wish they would still be better, and they have been doing better of recent, but still. It is frustrating at times, and you're like, God, why can't you just win? Why do you have to score a goal and then 30 seconds later concede a goal? To be spoken to more later as well, because it has been angering me. But I will get to that, like I said, a little bit more later, because I have plenty of more time to rant in the tank.
You're very right. Well, somebody I'd also like to talk about is Nikita. Let me see if I can say his name. His has been the hardest for me so far. Nikita Prishapov, our 7th round pick, who, fun fact, is the second 7th rounder ever to debut immediately after being drafted. He was just drafted in this previous draft class, and to his credit, for being a guy who's being given very limited minutes every night just to fill a hole, he's been looking like he wants it out there. He's been making smart decisions. He's strong. He goes in for the puck, and he was doing about everything except scoring against the Predators. And man, he had a couple almost. He almost made his debut and scored his first couple goals in that debut. And he's been up the last few games to varying effect, a little less notable, a little more noticeable. But he so far is a guy that I feel like could be given a bigger chance. And I wish they'd maybe give him a few more minutes on the ice, because it feels like he's always just on the brink of doing something amazing. So it gives you hope for the Avalanche prospect pool, which many often criticize. But man, they bring these kids up and they're looking great. Both Ivan and Nikolai Kovalenko are both in that hunt for most amount of points by rookies. So, you know, everybody talks about the Avalanche prospect pool, but man, those rookies, they've been looking good.
Yeah, and that you love to see this. This is rare, and we talk about it in other sports as well, but you do not expect the 7th round picks to be starters, especially not in that first year. You expect them to be AHL guys, and oftentimes they are career AHL guys or end up in other leagues internationally. So really impressive to see that development so early, and seems like the Avs found a steal late in the draft.
Certainly so. I believe Nikita Kucherov was a 7th round pick. Am I correct? Let me see. I need to double check myself to make sure. I just want to make sure I'm not talking shit. Nope, he was a 2nd round pick. Who was on the Lightning that was a 7th round pick? There is somebody who was a 7th round pick.
It's not Braden Point, is it?
No, it might have been Hedman.
Oh, that might make more sense.
Players draft. I know. Well, I mean,
couldn't pass up the fun opportunity.
there are. I'm scrolling back a little here. There are a couple notable Lightning names in the 7th round. So Hedman was number 2 overall. Jesus, I sound like an absolute goon right now. But some notable ones.
Listen, I said points, so you know.
Andre Palat was a 7th rounder. Man, I actually just must be, I think I am just insane, Dom. Well, there have been a couple 7th round steals. How about this? best NHL players drafted in the 7th round. Here we go. Joe Pavelski was a 7th round pick.
Well,
So-
I mean, listen, I don't need a second invitation to tout the praises for Joe Pavelski. I hope you're enjoying your retirement, good sir. But I won't talk about him for too long because I've already taken the time to do that on a previous episode.
The leader and best 7th round pick ever is Doug Gilmour with 1,414 points. So pretty remarkable there. Another notable name, former Avalanche player, is Valeri Kamensky. So there you go. But anyway, I digress. Nikita Prichapov, he was in the lineup again tonight against the Jets. Did great. Now, on to the Avalanche versus the Kraken. The return of Artturi Lehkonen. And man, did that return not disappoint. I wore my Lehkonen jersey that game, as did most people. And we'll touch more on Lehkonen here as an individual in a second. But you can tell that this was an Avalanche team that had been energized by the return of a key player. They had that jump and excitement in their game, and every line was getting into dangerous areas and making something happen. It wasn't just the top guys, and the top guys were noticeable. With some good play, the crowd seems more energized, but I need more. I do think there is still some nervous energy among everyone, and it's understandable. Everyone is afraid someone else is going to get injured. The goaltending is going to let in 5 unnecessary goals, but truly, everyone, if you're at the game, cheer, scream, yell, let's go Avs, like the boys are up 10-0 every single game. They really do need it. I need it. Because it just, we would get some small let's go Avs chants going, but it was hard for the whole crowd to get into it. So come on, people, let's pick it up a little bit.
We've said it so many times, but get out there and support your team and cheer them on. And I don't care if they're losing. They need your spirit as a fan to help them win. We've talked about it time and time again. It makes a difference for the players on the ice. For any player in any sport, you ask them how it was like. Ask especially hockey players, though, how it was playing during COVID when there were no fans in the stands and how different of an experience that was. So I just get out there and cheer for your team, guys.
Spoiler alert, they were not big fans of that. Not big fans of no fans. So, unrelated.
Hockey players are big fans of you guys, the fans, okay?
Very much so. Unless you're Blues fans bullying Jordan Kyrou. That was not a good time. But all was well. They gave him a standing ovation later, and that's old news. So, unrelated to the game, at Ball Arena, you can scan a QR code on the Jumbotron, and you can submit like a photo, a selfie of you and whomever at the game. And my friend and I were like, how can we get the most cursed photo on here? Because obviously they go through a review. So we just wanted to straight face the camera, and we ended up hitting them with the Kubrick stare. So we looked absolutely menacing in our picture. It was so cursed, and it got on the Jumbotron.
Wait, that's awesome. You have to send me this picture, dude.
I think I have it. Hold on. I have like a version of it. Let me send it your way. It was very funny because when we finally saw it appear, man, did I laugh. So this isn't like the full, like the real version that we were able to use, but imagine this once it sends here and our heads like tilted down for the Stanley Kubrick stare. For those who don't know what the Kubrick stare is, I can't really do a good job of describing it to you, so just give it a quick goog. Looks like it went through to you, Tom.
All right. Well, we will see if my internet's the problem, and I'll let you know when I see it.
I sent it on Snap, by the way, to clarify.
Sounds good. Yeah, that's normally slower here for me too.
I got you.
I will go for the look.
So yeah,
go for the look-see.
Whenever you do see it, just imagine that, but more menacing. That's basically what we managed to pull off.
Bro, I see it, and you already have like a killer playoff beard going right now.
I know, dude. I need to trim so bad. No, it's usually just an absolute mess. It needs.
Well, you can't trim yet. We're in November, bud, so you gotta wait till December.
Oh yeah, I guess that's true. No, it really does need to get. Hey, I'm not shaving. I'm trimming. It's not no trim November. It's just, yeah, it's no good right now. It's getting into my food at this point, and that's usually where I draw the line. I just have had no time. But anyway, throughout the game, it was just me and my friend. It was kind of an off chance that we got to go. There was somebody that we knew who had extra tickets, so just happened to float our way, and we were very happy about that. But we were around some really cool people, and there was an older fan in front of us who had some like weird app open. I didn't recognize it, but it had the game score on his phone, and it had a score of 1-1 when that was actively not the case, and the Avs were up 1-0. We joked that his phone knew the future, and to which I said, hopefully not, because a power play happened right after. And unfortunately, his phone did know the future because the Kraken did tie it up. And in fact, that penalty from that power play was killed. However, right as the penalty ended, Sam Malinsky loses his man in front and misses the tuck. 90% of the time, Mr. Malinsky has great games, but 10% of the time, it's these small errors that cost big. Overall, Taves, I felt, also had a tougher game defensively, which is tough to see, but frankly, to expect a human being to be free of error and play absolutely 100% incredibly every single game, every single moment, I think is a lot. And there was also a bad clearing attempt by LOC that led to the second goal. Multiple times they could have gotten it out before the 4-on-4 became a power play. A little more grit is necessary because the structure is there, and I really think the clearing was the biggest killer in this game. And the Avs have struggled to clear their own zone quite a bit. And the Avalanche couldn't get free of their zone, and it led to a couple of the Kraken goals. Now, on the bright spots here, because obviously we didn't fucking lose this game. We won it 6-3. The Avalanche were seeing the lanes. Pucks aren't just getting thrown on net, but they are getting thrown, or sorry, how did I say this? Pucks aren't just getting thrown at the net, but they're getting thrown on the net. The boys are finding the path to Grubauer from the point, slot, circles, and they are making him work for it. Now, at another point, the Kraken were given quite a few power plays, and there was a penalty call that I noted on Samuel Girard that I called bullshit because they called it a tripping penalty when Samuel Girard's stick did not even touch the opposing player. He fell all on his own, but because Samuel Girard was in the near vicinity, obviously it was a tripping call.
Well, it's hockey. We're not going to give into conspiracy theories, but any other sport, and I dare I say, would I be like rigged? ? The fact that the score sheet showed the goal before it happened in live time, that is wacky, wonky, weird, and someone needs to talk to that guy about that app and if it can see the future.
The NHL script writers got leaked. But I will give the Kraken some credit. Going into the second, they came out with a spring in their step, and they weren't content with just letting the Avs set up shop in their zone, and they continued that play throughout the rest of the game. However, unfortunately for the Kraken, we scored 2 goals every period, and that's because Cale Makar and Nathan MacKinnon and Artturi Lehkonen couldn't be stopped. At this exact point in time, I said 3 points for Mac Insanity, but no, my friends. Nathan MacKinnon didn't end this game with 3 points. He didn't end it with 4 points. He ended it with 5. There were 6 goals that the Avalanche scored, and the only one he didn't assist on was an empty netter by Mikko Rantanen. Otherwise, everything the Avalanche did was partially due to Nathan MacKinnon. 2 of them also for Makar. The streak was kept alive at least one more game. Not to mention that Artturi Lehkonen, getting back in the lineup, immediately goes in and scores his first goal of the season. I knew, I felt it in my bones. I told everybody around me, if Artturi Lehkonen scores, I'm losing my shit, and that is exactly what happened.
And you know what? It was meant to happen. He's that good of a player, and you see it when they're all on the ice and they're all gelling together as a team. That's what I was talking about before with MacKinnon having line mates he's used to running with, and look how many points he was able to put up. Though, dare I say, perhaps they scored too many goals in that game, and for some reason, some type of karmic balancing out, that led to the scoreless evening tonight against Winnipeg.
I couldn't even say. But with those 5 points, Nathan MacKinnon has taken the lead in points for the league. I guess that's what happens when you put up 5. But what do I even say? And I typed this after the strangest power play goal I have ever seen occurred. Dom, were you privy to this strange goal that occurred during our game?
I was not, regrettably.
Well, I am happy to inform you. So the Avalanche on their power play, Lehkonen gets into the zone, which at the time he entered, I noted, oh, it looked like he was offside, but nothing was called at that point. 40 seconds later, the Avalanche set up a nice pass. Mikko tucks it, top cheddar, absolutely gorgeous goal, finally gets himself back on the score sheet. However, the Kraken, rightfully so, challenged the play, and as we saw, Lehky was very much offside, and therefore the call was initially correct. However, thanks to, apparently, NHL Rule 83.1, if a player legally carries, passes, or plays the puck back into his own defending zone while a player of the opposing team is in such defending zone, the offside shall be ignored and the play permitted to continue. Thank you, Sportsnet. That's right. The Kraken themselves sent the puck back into the zone for Lehky to retrieve. So thank goodness the line judge missed the offside initially because, well, then it would have been ruled offsides. But as I said, the Kraken themselves passed it into their own zone rather than an Avs player passing it to Lehky. So therefore the play is not offsides. I have watched a shit ton of hockey and I can confidently say I have never seen that. I can also say the Avalanche have somehow been a part of some of the strangest offside reviews of all time.
Wow, I actually can say I have witnessed that before, but perhaps it's because I watch the Sharks. And let's just say the caliber of play is sometimes lacking. So I have seen that one go the wrong way for my boys in teal. So perhaps that is the cause. But definitely wild and wacky and not the norm.
Well, I can tell you when it happened, it was disappointing because you see the replay and it's like, bummer. Because you could tell. It was obvious. But then, right as they line up to take the face off, just accepting, I'm like, okay, we'll just score another one. Fuck them. The refs skate back over and they're looking at something and you can see it. The Kraken player, I believe it was Yanni Gourde, rims it around the outside after taking a shot. No other Avalanche player touches it. And so because a Kraken player was the last person to touch it, Lehky was allowed to touch it in the Kraken zone. No offsides in that situation. So I hope for anybody else who was as confused as I was in that moment, I hope that cleared it up for you a little bit because that certainly did. But it was very, very strange, especially being there live because obviously you don't get any of the insights from the TV broadcast. I just kind of had to try and figure out what the hell was going on my own. But to wrap this game up, the overall summary of the third is that the Avalanche began to sit back and play much more passive and defensive hockey, which is fine because they had the 2-goal lead. However, in today's NHL, no lead is ever safe anymore. But ultimately, the odd thing to me in that regard is that this isn't the Avalanche style. Typically, when they're ahead, particularly late in the game, they seek to continue that offense and pressuring the opponent. The Avalanche's best defense is a continued offense. And as a whole in the game, that was shown as they only allowed about 20 shots on net throughout the whole thing. But that has been their identity. You don't need to be overly reliant on defensive hockey when you're never in your own end.
Well, that is so true. You don't have to play defense in your own end. You can play defense in the neutral zone. That is, in fact, the best way to play defense, let alone if you can play defense in the O zone. Not always likely, but playing defense in the neutral zone is how to play good defense. It also sets up good offense. So you're absolutely right. If you are playing defense only in your own zone, you end up losing games like the Sharks do. Plain and simple.
So, yeah. Now, I don't have a note on it, but I've been reminded of it multiple times, and it would be a crime of me to not mention because, man, watching it happen live, even though it ultimately resulted in a goal, Parker Kelly is doing his job as a fourth-line grinder, blocking five shots in a row. One shot for every Nathan MacKinnon assist, I suppose. But unfortunately, the Avalanche in the dying minutes of the game, about 3:30 left, got trapped in their own end. That fourth line out there grinding, defending the zone, trying to get it out. Parker Kelly doing everything in his power And you can see it in the replay. He gets hurt on the first shot that he blocks. You can tell it stings him, it stuns him. Obviously, no worse for wear tonight because those guys are just made of titanium. But he somehow managed to keep positioning himself right in the path of the Kraken. But they did the smart thing. They pulled their goaltender, had an extra attacker out there, and the Avalanche just couldn't hold them off forever. But thankfully, it didn't matter in the end, even though that pulled the Kraken within one. Mikko got another one down the ice for an empty netter, and Nikolai Kovalenko scored his second goal of the season with only a second remaining. And as the lovely Connor McGahey, Connor, I really want you on this show. So if you ever hear this, Connor, please give us an email. I want you here. Called him Scott Sterling. Dom, are you familiar with Scott Sterling?
The man, the myth, the legend, Scott Sterling.
Very good.
That is my best impression. I'm aware.
Very good. And if anybody out there doesn't know who Scott Sterling is, please go and look, because it is some of the funniest videos you have ever seen in your life. And it very much does accurately represent what Parker Kelly was doing in that moment. Now, I
just have to say, if you are going to watch Scott Sterling, first, be on YouTube and watch our podcast or listen. Second, type into that search bar Scott Sterling and start with the soccer video, because trust me, the volleyball one is just better. So you want to save the best for last.
I can definitely agree with that. I can definitely agree with that. Before we hop into In the Tank, one last thing I wanted to touch on was Lehkonen as an individual. I don't think his return can be understated. Every person the Avalanche get back here all hold a high level of importance. Obviously, it's 6 of their top 9 forwards, but Lehkonen is a top 6 guy, and he is somebody who not only is on the power play, but he's on the penalty kill, and he makes, that was enunciated very weird, but you know what I mean. He makes significant contributions on both. He is somebody who has been unafraid throughout his entire career to play gritty hockey and get in those dirty areas, and yet he has such a high skill ceiling, and it's incredible to watch his chemistry with other guys. Seeing him back up there with Nate, and Nate has such good chemistry with Artturi Lehkonen. You can tell that they were just thrilled to be back on the ice together, and that the team as a whole, you could feel the weight lifted off of some people's shoulders when the fantastic Finn stepped back on the ice. I may be a little shallow with this analysis, but I mean, Artturi Lehkonen truly does it all for the Avs. He is a Swiss Army knife, but he isn't just a grinder. He's somebody who you can rely on to score and be there in those big moments. He's the man who sent us to the Stanley Cup final. He's the man who tied up the game in Game 6 against the Tampa Bay Lightning before Nathan MacKinnon took it home from there. He is, without a doubt, one of the most important Avalanche players ever since they acquired him. Chris MacFarland and Joe Sakic have a fantastic eye for guys like that, and it only makes you all the more excited for other people's return. But man, was it great to see him back, because the difference that he made immediately was beyond noticeable.
Well, we've heard Joe Pavelski's name tonight, and remember earlier in our previous episodes, for those of you who've been with us since the beginning, I called out the question in our inaugural episode of who would be the next Joe Pavelski around the league. Those players to pursue the dirty areas, play on the power play, the penalty kill, have that skill and that work ethic, have the good hands, and as you put it, the high talent ceiling. Dare I say, you might have identified the best candidate thus far of the season, and aren't we happy to say that he resides on at least one of our teams? And good for us and for the podcast that he is an Avalanche player.
And thankfully, he's locked up for a while. Ever since that Stanley Cup run, they locked him down, and boy, has it paid dividends ever since. But I might argue, because Joe Pavelski was a big net front guy. He was a big garbage man, big tipping guy. I think Valeri Nichushkin, who we'll talk about more later, actually fits that description maybe a little better. I mean, would you say that Joe Pavelski was a Selke caliber player?
So, I think Joe Pavelski is very underappreciated. But I do think you make a good point that perhaps in this case, the ceiling is actually higher. In this case, as compared to Joe Pavelski. You are right. He is the garbage player on the rebounds. However, that does come with the taking the force of all the checks, the cross checks to the back. That
Oh
does
yeah.
come with also just being there, being big, and screening a goaltender's eyes. So there are multiple roles to play on the ice. And it's yes, in some sense he's cleaning up the garbage in front of the net, but what he was able to do from just years and years of practice and spending extra hours on the ice, working with coaches, working with teammates to practice those tips and to have the hand-eye coordination he has, that wasn't just something that was a I mean, he had a natural skill for it better than I've seen from other players, but he also worked at it so much that I do want to give him credit there. But I agree that it's hard to say. I mean, in my brain, Pavelski is a Hall of Famer, but in reality, I don't know if he will ever be inducted, and that's a sad statement, and it's obviously not up to me because I believe he has done more than enough to on his own individual merit to be there. But the winning pedigree, he doesn't have his name on the cup. The final step is missing. So I think that also is an impact when we think about Selke players.
A lot of those legendary Sharks, unfortunately, will never have their names on the cup. Although maybe Joe Thornton will get a chance being with Sharks management if Macklin Celebrini versus Connor Bedard, Western Conference Final. Maybe someday. Now, I actually am going to save my quick analysis of the Jets game for after your segment because I have other notes to follow up in the tank with Dom, but I don't want to keep dominating the conversation here because there was
done.
there was some pregame analysis that I did before the Jets game, honestly not expecting to be able to talk about it tonight. But for now, everyone, it's time for your favorite section because I do, as I said, have some more notes on the Avalanche to get to. But first, Dom, your Sharks are now starting to look like the secret contenders that everyone always knew that they could be. For every loss, there's also a gritty and well-played win to go along with it. So it's time for In the Tank with Dom.
Well, thanks, Corey. And I will say for the Sharks right now, it is one win for every 2 losses, standing at 4-8, as well as 2 overtime losses. But it has improved. They won 3 straight, and I believe 4 of the last 5 total, if I analyze that correctly, because they've won 2 out of the last 3. So much better compared to when we talked previously. And I know last time I got to talk about the first win and then the fact that it was back-to-back wins, and we were talking on Halloween, and they did pick up a 3rd straight win, and it was a great win. They played, I think they were the better team all game, and I'll get to it in a minute, but let me just give you some overall recap. The Sharks are feeling better. It's not this going in with the knowledge that they are more likely than not going to lose. And yes, they are still going to be underdogs in most games that they play, but you have this feeling, this sense of just this gut knowledge that when we talk about teams are able to win on any given game, any given night, the Sharks actually feel like that is capable now. Early in the season, it didn't necessarily feel possible. After that close loss, forcing the Dallas to overtime, what probably was our best game of the early season of the first 9 games of the season, after that, the play really dropped off and they were getting pummeled game after game, and it didn't feel close. So to be in games again, and not just be coming from behind and making miracles like against Utah, but to be in them through the thick of it. The game against LA, the loss and the win, they were in it. The game against Chicago, I will cover. Against Columbus, like, are they the better team in all of these games? No, but are they doing enough to get on the scoreboard when they need to and get the wins and have it matter in the biggest moments? Yes, they are. And so that is important to recognize. And something else that is important to recognize is the need to continue reducing the penalties and stop giving your opponents power plays. Well, in the last 3 games, or the 3 that I'll be covering tonight, because obviously I've given updates in live time, but the second period just had puck drop. in this game against Minnesota, so I will not be providing a full analysis on that one tonight. So in the previous 3 games anyway, they have conceded 3 power plays or less in all 3 of those games. Previously, I was talking about them averaging 4 or 5 power plays per game with back-to-back games of 7 on more than one occasion this season. So to have that cut in half and down to 2 to 3 power plays per game over the past week is huge. And don't get me wrong, it can still be better. And it is something that the Sharks need to continue having as an emphasis, but I don't know what Coach Warsofsky's doing, but it's working. And the guys are showing up better. Although, as I say that, they just gave up a goal, not on the power play, and they are now losing 2-0. Eriksson X scores, so sad face. That's the best analysis I can give because I wasn't paying close enough attention, and I just hear the buzzer go off and see the red light without the excitement of all the Sharks faithful. So,
but I mean,
knew it wasn't going the right way.
I think you said it there, that just being in it is step 1 to that success and that continued success. Even when you're losing, if you manage to remain competitive in the game, that you don't just concede, that you don't just give up, it shows that you're progressing in the right direction. And I've seen that with the Avalanche a lot this year, at least in the early goings, that even when they're losing now, we're still in the game. We're not losing because goaltending's giving up 3 in the first period. No. We're losing because maybe one sneaks through or a small mistake happens or we're just getting unlucky, but we're hanging with the best of them. And that happened tonight with the Jets. So, I mean, once those reinforcements come, and once I think for you guys, the Sharks specifically, once I think you have a few more of those pieces, especially on the D, then it won't just be about being in the games, but then you'll be in the games and then you'll be able to take that extra step to win them as well.
Well, and they have taken that extra step to win them. Maybe not as a favorite, but they are still winning games. We do see a coach's challenge, and the call is overturned due to offside. So the Sharks are still only down 1 goal in this game. It does feel like more because they are getting muscled by this better Minnesota team. Well, I never expected to say that, but this Minnesota team is better than expected. But the Sharks are only losing by 1. So we can go back to normal face. I don't know about happy smiley face, but no sad face right now. Anyway, back to my analysis, and you are absolutely correct that there is progress, and I am so happy about it. And that's where I'm just saying and calling on the Sharks to not hold their hats on that and forget the efforts that have made the progress. They do need to continue emphasizing and improving on the power play. And the penalty kill actually is more what I mean, defending the power play, but also their power play can always be improved. However, I do want to say something that is almost more important of an area of emphasis for the Sharks, and that is the shift after they score. In every game this year, both win and loss, the first 60 seconds, or first 90, let's say, after the Sharks give up a goal, so the first 1 to 3 shifts, there have been too many occasions that I don't actually have a count of them for you, where they have conceded a goal right away. Now, as a team that is losing and who has been struggling, getting a goal is huge. Getting back into those games, getting a sense of momentum is huge. So to have that wind in your sails and feel picked up, and then just suddenly give it away and let the opposing team score right back, that is almost worse of a dagger, where you finally have some hope, some progress, and get it ripped away. And we've seen that in that demoralizing feeling in other games for the Sharks this year. And it is a continued problem, even in the wins, as I said. So that is something that the Sharks need to continue to focus on. And this happened in some of the other games, so I'm just going to get right into it with the game against Chicago on Halloween.
You might want to look at your screen.
I am watching, and I see they are on a power play. Perhaps my stream is behind, so
just look at your screen.
All right, please hold, everyone, while I watch. We have Celebrini making the entry, threading the needle through the defense. Wenberg has it at the left point. He's skating forward, drops it to Granlund. He's holding it on the outside of the left circle. Passing it up to the point to Liljegren. Passes it back to Granlund. A crossover to Celebrini. In front. Oh, and it just cleared away by the defenseman. Right as I said, the momentum wasn't feeling on the Sharks' side, though. They've got 5 shots on goal in this power play.
What's the time on your clock?
I see 17:30 in the second.
Well, I'll put it this way. Look up again at around, no spoilers, like 16 minutes. 15:45.
All right. Will do. Thanks though for making sure I don't miss it.
Oh, I don't know what you're talking about, brothers. Nothing to miss.
Nothing's happened. Nothing's happened yet. I don't know what's happened. Celebrini has looked electric on this power play, though, and actually just snapped his stick trying to feed it to Foley in the front. I guarantee you if that stick did not break, the puck would have gone in the net there at about 17:45. Right now, while I have a bit of time, though, Halloween versus Chicago, when we made our last episode for you, celebrating the spooky season. And the Sharks certainly had a treat for fans and played a trick on Chicago, coming back from behind. It marked the 3rd straight Sharks win, and they were the better team early in the game. All of my Will Smith hate that I had been giving in the previous episodes, in the previous weeks, this game melted it away, where he got not 1, but 2 goals, including the first goal early in the game and the ultimate game winner. Well done, Mr. Will Smith. I take back what I said. Coach Warshawski, he is the professional. He knows what he's doing. Don't send this kid to the minors. This team has more life. He can thrive at this level. He's already looking faster. He's looking bigger. So clearly they are getting him into the weight room and working with him on that element of his game. So that's a big development for Will Smith. And you could see it. The whole team on the ice and everyone on the bench really rallied around him when he scored that first goal. And you could just see the relief on his face to finally break that slump and break through and get on the score sheet finally with a goal. And everyone was so ecstatic for him. So he's so calm. The celebration was minimal, just putting the stick down at his hip, almost like sheathing a sword, like, finally I can rest after going into battle for years. It was a wonderful feeling to witness. And again, it's important. This type of thing, it is important for these rookies when they're in a slump to break that slump and feel confident so they don't have that loss in confidence over time, and get broken down. So I take back what I said. We love you in San Jose, Will Smith, and are very happy for you, as am I. And that's the positive from early in the game. Corey, would you like to add anything? Have you seen any of Will Smith's play thus far?
How the turntables, Dom. Well, I will say I did also see his first goal celebration, and he hit the nail on the head. Rather than celebrating right away, you could just see his shoulders sink in pure relief, and I can definitely understand that. I mean, when you're like a 4th line grinder, you score, you're happy, but you know it's not really your job. But I think Will knows that there are big expectations for him, as are there for Macklin as well. And I think it can be nerve-wracking when you're as young as he is with those big expectations on your shoulders. I'm sure Jack Hughes very much felt the same way in his inaugural season before really taking off after that. So it was good.
Oh, sorry, I have to interrupt you because Celebrini is on the board.
There it is. There it is.
Wow, yeah, that took a while. Sorry, everyone, my stream is behind. But Celebrini scores. We love to see it, Mr. 71. Big smile on his face, and that is a goal scorer's celebration right there. No slump shoulders, all joy. Great job. Way to feed the puck back in the front by, is that Granlund, it looks like? It bounces just over Fleury's pad. He got a piece of it. That must have been killer. And Toffoli was there to clean up the garbage had it been stopped. So well done by the Sharks, getting a 3-on-2 rush and converting before the defense could reset.
Very good. I actually may or may not also now have the game pulled up while you're doing your analysis, but my clock is at about 12 minutes, 11 minutes and 53 seconds to be exact. I do not know how you are so unbelievably behind.
I don't know if it's because I'm watching the home broadcast on online right now, or if I just need to reload the whole site.
You know, Up to you. But I'm also watching
Anyway,
the home broadcast. But please
well, what I
carry
will
on.
do is
I
I
didn't
will
have anything
continue
else to
my
add there.
analysis, and then I can fix the stream at the next intermission, perhaps. But where was I? We were celebrating Will Smith getting his first goal, and
Word.
how the celebration was more of relief than of actual like jubilation. However, what I talked about before about conceding goals right afterward. No sooner had the Sharks scored, but did they concede a goal to Ryan Donato, who got the Blackhawks on the board. And less than a minute after that, Tyler Bertuzzi scored a second. So it went from Will Smith getting his first goal, that relief, to within 2 minutes later, the Sharks are now losing 2-1. And this is the problem I tried to highlight before. It is a continued problem that they need to work on. I don't know how best to describe what it is, or how to work on it, other than just having defensive fundamentals, no lapses in concentration after that excitement of scoring a goal. I feel like the mental toll of the early season, when the Sharks do have a lead, for some it's put them into second gear instead of being at full speed. So I don't know how better to describe it, but it's something that needs to be watched, or it needs to improve, because it has been a bad pattern. Like I said, far worse than the power plays pattern, because at least their penalty kill has been really on this year. But you can't be giving up goals right after you score, Corey. I'm sure you agree.
Definitely so, and it was a problem that the Avalanche dealt with at the start of this season as well, and I said it needed to be cleaned up. Thankfully, it does seem to be something that's been slowing down as of late, letting up goals right after they score themselves. Just the problem lately has been they'll score a bunch of goals in one game and then really not any in another. So now it's just about finding that typical Avalanche goal scoring consistency, which I know with the return of the great people soon, they will. So I completely agree with you to put it in an Avalanche context.
Well, and I think it's perfect that you called out consistency, because my next note from this game against the Blackhawks is that early in the second, there was a bobbled save from Mrazek, and Mr. Alex Wenberg, the man who was shy to shoot back in his time in Columbus so that they felt the need to buy out his contract. He has not been shy to shoot lately, and he has been crashing the net. He's been everywhere on the ice, doing everything for the Sharks, winning faceoffs, shooting from the point, shooting from the circles, the dots, or just going right in the front to clean up the garbage. He has been everywhere. And in this game against Chicago, he did get the game-tying goal early in the second. Like I said, Mrazek bobbled the save on a first initial shot, I believe, from Zetterlund, and then he dropped it right in front and tried to cover it, but he did not have it completely covered. And Wenberg just poked it, just a small little poke right through the 5-hole to put the Sharks back level with the Blackhawks. Very cheap. It's not a goober goal, but it had that type of feeling, because it was a save that I'm sure Mrazek should have wanted back, because he didn't get the cover. Like, the puck was still visible to the referee. I didn't see it from my angle, but the referee could from behind the net, and thankfully in this case it worked out in the Sharks' favor.
Man, just Alex Wenberg, what a pickup for you guys. Not to spoil anything that I know is coming a little later, but man, he has just been a fantastic pickup for the Sharks. That's all I really have to say for that.
You're absolutely correct. That is what the locker room needed. We needed some veteran presences, and some guys, just like what happened with Blackwood, who sometimes just need a fresh change of scenery, a fresh start, a different pressure put on them, to shoot more. Maybe not having so many star players around him that are veterans, he felt more comfortable being the guy to take more shots. Whatever it may be, it's working, and we love to see it. And what we don't love to see is that the Wild just scored a goal. Let's see if this one is upheld, because there's a possibility for goaltender interference, like a mild possibility, but it does look like Zuccarello did just put the Wild back ahead. So we go back into sad face mode for the live reaction time. But back to a positive, because I don't want to live in sad face mode when the Sharks are doing better overall. So midway through the second, Will Smith had an opportunity. It was just after a power play, or no, it was on the power play, if I recall. And he gets the puck center of the ice, not quite at the blue line, so not quite at the point, but not quite to the face-off dot. You can picture it, Corey, and I hope the fans can as well. But he rifles it, a winner, just all power in the wrist shot, blocker side high, just inside underneath the bar to take what ultimately was the game-winning goal. So not only did he score first, he also scored last in the game. From there, the Sharks continued to pressure in the second period against the Blackhawks, continuing to show they were the better team, have the higher chance opportunities, the higher shots on goal count. So like I said before, the Sharks finally do show that they can be the better team in some of these games, especially at home, now that they have gotten off the schneid. However, in the third period, they did turtle some. They did play a lot more defense, and I think they only had 5 shots on goal or less. So that lack of pressure in the third period invited the Blackhawks back into the game, giving them some chances. And thankfully, we do have Mr. Mackenzie Blackwood. I have not sung his praises yet tonight, so we must get to that segment of the evening where Blackwood, thank you for being between the pipes and saving everything that should probably be going in the net, because he had some incredible stops in that third period against the Blackhawks and keeping Bedard as well off the score sheet. And that was huge for the Sharks to be able to hold on for a Halloween night victory.
Love a spooky night victory. And I wish the Avalanche could play on Halloween, as I expressed last episode.
Well, I wish every team could play on Halloween. I think
that's when we need the Frozen Frenzy.
Seriously, it really is, especially when it's getting frigid outside. What better time than to sit inside, have some hot cocoa, and watch a shit ton of hockey all day?
Dom, I'm sorry to say, this is my analysis of your game. What's your lovely coach's name?
Warsofsky, something like that.
Well, as great of a job as he's done turning the Sharks season around, no offense to him, there's no turning that hairline around. I think the man just needs to shave that all off. Anyway.
I mean, this is hockey, and it's a sport where I think if he went all bald and all beard, I think it would work. So I
do too. That's what he needs to do. He'd look tough as hell.
He would. Speaking of tough as hell, moving on to the November 2nd game versus Vancouver, and this was ultimately a tough loss to swallow for the Sharks, losing by a final score of 3-2. Now, I will preface this saying that both Mackenzie Blackwood started this game as well, and Lehkonen, the goalie for the Vancouver Canucks, they both played really well in this game. They both had strong performances. It seemed like a goalie duel where it was going to be a low-scoring game overall. And the Sharks did start well overall in this game once again in the shot on goal count. Even if the shot on goal count, in the first period didn't show it, the chances were there. The pace was there. It wasn't like the Canucks were this all better team. So it really did feel like a balanced first period. And ultimately, it was Nico Sturm who scored first against the Canucks in the second period for the Sharks to open up the scoring. But ultimately, the Sharks gave up the puck from behind their own net, just let a lazy pass floating it into the middle of the ice, something that you should never do. You should never throw the puck in the middle of the ice in your own defensive zone. And they paid the price for it, giving up the Canucks tying goal. I don't recall which Canucks player got it. It was fresh off the bench and just kind of walked up and was able to slap it home or slap it towards net, and maybe it was cleaning up the garbage. I've honestly forgotten it because I didn't love seeing it. I blocked it from my memory because the pass was lazy. It was poor defensive work, and I don't want to talk about it anymore. But it gets worse because Jake DeBrusk, who had failed to score since signing that big contract with Vancouver, unfortunately got off his schneid against the Sharks, scoring Vancouver's second goal in the third period. This was the case for the majority of the third period, where we saw Vancouver leading by a score of 2-1. They really did hone in on their defense. This was the Sharks' turn, similar against the Blackhawks, where they turtled a little bit and allowed the opposing team to walk in or have a little bit more offensive chances. Vancouver did give more ice to the Sharks in this third period, and the Sharks did their best to take it, but nothing was going home. Like I said, Lehkonen and Blackwood both had incredible games, so I would just like to recognize how well Lehkonen played as well for Vancouver, because I tip my cap. He had a good game. Ultimately, the Sharks did start to rally, though, and it was once again late in the third with the goalie pulled. I don't know what's going on. They haven't been giving up a ton of empty netters since this winning ways have started. I don't think they've given up any empty netters actually since they won their first game. And with a minute 18 left, Granlund was able to get the goal with the goalie pulled. And suddenly there is 70 seconds left. And you wonder, is this going to be like the Utah game? Are the Sharks going to get the win against a better team that they probably have no business winning, but they've been in this game? So you know what? Maybe they do have business winning this game. That's that feeling of like, this team is better than the Sharks, and the Sharks should not be in this game, but they are. And you know what? This is just fitting of the grief that I'm feeling talking about Vancouver, because the Wild just scored to make it 3-1. And I am like droopy sad face now.
Just
like,
wait a second, brother. Give it like 2 seconds. You'll be less
maybe,
sad face.
Maybe this one will get called back as well, or the Sharks will score one. Who knows? I will jump back to the Vancouver game because there's plenty of sad face here, because once again, what was I talking about earlier? Oh yeah, the Sharks scoring and not giving up a goal right after, especially when there is less than 90 seconds left in the game. You are playing for overtime. You are at home. You have the crowd on your side against a better team. You got this energy, this hope. And then you let the Vancouver Canucks score a goal, a game winner with 26 seconds left in the game. And that it's just utterly demoralizing and backbreaking. It is so painful when you're like, you have this hope as a fan, you've been watching, and suddenly they score, and then, oh, nope, we're going to give you the lead back, Vancouver. We're going to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. It's a tough feeling. Good news is, good sir, thank you for having your stream ahead, because you're absolutely right. 2 for 2, Coach Warshawski on his coach's challenges. He's 0 for 1 on his hairline, but he's 2 for 2 on challenges tonight, so we love to see that.
Oh, brother. Oh, that's brutal.
One last note from Vancouver before I get further off topic. There was a moment in those final 26 seconds where Toffoli was able to feed it right to Zetterlund, right in front of the net, point blank on his own, and the puck was rolling a little and jumped his stick, and he went for to slap it home. And I kid you not, this is with like 2 to 3 seconds left. If he hits this one home, the game is tied, and it is a buzzer beater goal. Unfortunately, he only got a piece of it, and it jumped his stick, and you could just see him like fall to his knees there, just like sitting on one knee, like, damn it. Like, it was right there. It was so close. And Fabian Zetterlund has been playing well this year. He has been someone who you see going up and down between the NHL and the AHL. But this year, he has truly earned his spot and shown his worth to be consistently on the Sharks lineup card. So you've got this feeling that he could have scored that. He wanted to score that. And other times this year, he would have. And it was just a bad bounce. It wasn't his fault. So I do want to say that one almost that happened right before the end of the game, but ultimately, as I said before, this was a 2-3 loss to Vancouver, but like the 2-3 loss to LA, a winnable game. If anything, this one felt far more winnable because it was tied so late in the game rather than scoring a garbage time goal to make it 3-2 instead of 3-1. Is there anything else you would like to add, Corey, before I proceed to the final game I have notes for?
No, other than I did see the loss happen, not live, but I did see the replay, and my heart broke for you.
Yeah, it was, as you said, heartbreaking. And especially, like, I don't know if you saw the part right at the end with Fabian Zetterlund, just how close he was, but it was, it's one of those things where if the puck came clean on his stick, I don't think many players are missing from that point on the ice. So, it's just how it goes sometimes. But again, the silver lining or the positive is I've been able to cover 4 Sharks victories out of the last 5 games, and that 5th game being this Vancouver loss. Yes, while painfully close, it is still improvement, like we said. It is a big shift in the right direction for the Sharks. So I will take that silver lining and proceed to the 4th win of the year against the Columbus Blue Jackets at home. And I prefaced this earlier tonight, but Vitek Vanacek was insane. The man was playing out of his tree, up, down, all over the place. Man standing on his head like they celebrate in the NFL now, apparently, because God, whatever. But the fact is it took 45 shots from Columbus before he finally conceded a goal. And I'm not just talking shots, but I'm talking some high danger chances. And the man was on one. We have talked about Blackwood all season, and Vanacek has definitely been a little overlooked, especially with Askarov just waiting in the NHL for his opportunity, or the AHL, excuse me. So the man showed up. The man just showed up. It was an insane goaltending performance. I mean, did you see any of it, Corey? Because it was impressive to behold.
Unfortunately not. What day was that game on?
This was on Tuesday, Election Day, actually, just earlier this week.
Well, the reason I would not have seen it is because I was busy attending my own game with the Avalanche, and I actually stuck around after for the quick little chalk talk that Joe Sakic did in the new and improved club level area, which I don't know if I can speak too much on. I think I'll talk to you about it after. Unfortunately, I don't know if I am allowed to speak about this particular thing, but yes, it was very cool. That's all I'll say. But no, I unfortunately missed that game because I was at Ball Arena for an extended period of time that night.
It was confidential and not classified, but we understand what you mean, and I hope I can hear it, but I also don't want to compromise you. So you know what? If some things are better left until I can witness it myself.
Oh, no. I think I can tell you peer to peer, but publicly on the podcast, I don't think I can say.
Well then, for all of you Avalanche fans, maybe you need to go to a game. Maybe you need to buy some club level tickets and see for yourself, because we need more Avs fans at the games. We've said it so many times. So that is the message you should get from this right now. But alas, getting back to the game, Vitek Vanacek, insane, playing out of his treehouse. And you know what? Columbus was the better team this game. The Sharks were in it the whole time. They still had 25 shots on goal. They still had high danger chances. They still won this game. But Columbus was the better team. They just couldn't convert. They were getting so many opportunities, so many high danger chances, and again, Vitek Vanacek making some insane saves in this game. And they just, whatever it might be, I don't know if it's a mental block or what. We've seen this with Columbus sometimes over the years with some inconsistency, but they were just not able to put the puck in the back of the net. And I'm grateful for it because, again, if this game was played in Columbus, or if they were just able to have those finishing shots, they would have won this game pretty handily. And so I'm grateful that the Sharks could take a win, but it was not because of their merit all up and down the lines. It was because of their goaltending, once again, keeping them in games. And you know what? As the team is getting better, it's not perfect. It is something that will continue to be a work in progress, but having the stable goaltending, something that I've not been able to compliment the Sharks for in recent years, is a big positive development. It is a big improvement. So that is something that I am always happy to recognize, and give credit where it's due. I mean, like I said earlier, Vitek Vanacek, first player since 1983 to have 49 or more saves in an overtime game, including an assist as well. So just an all-around great game that he was able to stop so many shots and get on the score sheet. However, tonight he is not having that same level of luck. This one is the third goal he has conceded to Minnesota, and it does not seem to be coming back, nor does he have an assist yet. So I'm going to focus on the positives and how great he played that game. But Minnesota is doing a far better job converting their opportunities tonight.
I'm very sorry.
It is okay. Minnesota has been
a
better team all year than what we would expect from Columbus. So maybe that's what it is. Great shot, ripping it high, glove side, just right in the corner. You can't tee that shot up any better. So well done by Minnesota. Decent screen in front. I'm sure that had an impact.
Don't be positive, Dom. Get mad. Get upset.
I am mad. I am mad. I'm sad mad. I don't know if you ever saw the movie Home, but the
I
character
did.
played by Jim Parsons, the Boov. Can I come into the out now? I'm sad mad. I'm dancing in the air with my hands are in the air and I just do not care. Well, I am angry and my hands are in the air and I do care. But so many fun moments. I'm glad I could plug that movie. Sorry, I'm not as good at being Jim Parsons and making jokes like that.
Nope, it was perfect.
But what did happen in the Columbus game, because I do want to cover some positives, so I'm going to look away from Minnesota for the time being and focus on the fact that the Sharks did score first. And it was not a power play goal, but it was within a second or two after the end of a power play, and Jack Thompson getting his first of the year. So it is logged as a 5-on-5, but it was definitely set up from the power play. Some great passing before the Columbus player could get back out of the box and into the play. I don't recall which one was in the box at the time, so go ahead and look that up if that is something you care about. The Columbus was able to even it up and force the game to go to OT. And once again, I must compliment Mr. Alex Wenberg, that player who just keeps showing up. I didn't know what to expect when the Sharks signed him, but God, like we said earlier, I am so happy that the Sharks did, because he logged yet another OT winner, threading the D like he was skiing a slalom, going 1 against 3, and putting a perfect shot into the top corner over the stick side against Columbus's goaltender. I don't know how to say his last name, so forgive me for that one, Columbus fans. I don't want to butcher your name.
I do know who that is. Hold on, I will help you, but carry on.
So as I stated before, Columbus was the better team overall. This was not the best game defensively from the Sharks, but it was probably the best goaltending game of the season for the Sharks, because we don't have any shutouts on the
Tarasov.
season. Oh, okay. That's a different one. I thought it was like
Elvis Merzlikins.
I think it was Merzlikins. Yeah.
It was not. It was Tarasov. I saw the replay.
It was Tarasov? Okay. For some reason, I thought it
was.
was Merzlikins. Perhaps I just was looking at the wrong game feed for when Merzlikins played. Anywho, what's important here? The Sharks got to win. And sometimes it doesn't matter how you get the win. It doesn't matter if you were the better team in the game necessarily. They got the win for the home faithful, who have continued to fill out the stands despite the early struggle. And we love to see it. That is what you're supposed to do. We love to see the tank rocking and rolling. And they snatched a win despite being outshot nearly double on the night. It was, I think the final shot on goal count was 40 or 50 to something like 24. So actually more than double. But the Sharks put 2 of them home and converted on their chances, and Columbus didn't. And no matter what, the fact that Columbus was leading in every other stat, you name it, Columbus was winning all the stats except for the scoreboard. Only one of them matters, though, and it is the scoreboard. So I will take the positives from this game, take the win. And I think with that, I've been in the tank here. I've taken you on a journey with this Minnesota game on the background as well. It's been all over the place, but I think I've gotten through all of my notes. So, Corey, do you have anything else to add, Sharks related, or any questions for me based on what's been going on recently that I can possibly speak to?
Your guys' power play sucks. Not that one just happened or anything.
Yeah, it's been bad, and that's where I did want to compliment in that Columbus game, where it was effectively a power play goal, but it didn't get logged as such because it was technically 5-on-5. I don't know which one would be better for the stats to have for the Sharks at this point, but it is disappointing. Not enough movement. It's not so much the passing that's the issue. The entries have been bad. I think having these young centers, having Will Smith, having Celebrini enter, having Celebrini back is a huge difference because he comes in with so much speed. It's been great for the entries to the zone, but the general zone entries on the Sharks power play have been really brutal. So I know they've been focusing a lot on the penalty kill, and there's plenty more for them to focus on, but the Sharks do need to work on their power play because they struggle to get goals 5-on-5, and they do need to convert 5-on-4 when they have the opportunity. It is a must if they want to win games.
Absolutely. But otherwise, I'm sorry. I don't have anything else.
Not to worry. I will just note actually one also important thing is Mr. Cardwell, Ethan Cardwell from the Barracuda. He has been elevated for multiple games in the past week to play with the Sharks active roster, including in both wins and losses. While he hasn't gotten on the stat sheet, the score sheet, he has played well enough for Coach Warshawski to keep him on the active roster for multiple games. And so that is another exciting prospect to see that we have in the pool and who's getting some NHL time, who's also doing extremely well at the AHL level with Askarov. Even if the wins aren't all there yet, we still have these players that are starting to get the experience, and there's even more prospects waiting behind them in the Sharks pool. So just be careful, everyone. In the next, I said 5 years or 4 years originally, but I'm feeling like it's closer to 2 or 3 years. You don't want to go swimming in San Jose because you might get bit.
Ah! Oh my god. Oh my.
I had to sneak a pun in there. I didn't get one yet today.
Oh, that's getting a nice oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you for that one. Well, Dom, are we all right for me to move on to my other notes that I have here?
Oh, absolutely. I've been tanking for a while here, and the Sharks are on a power play, so I would love to watch how bad it is so I can lament it later.
Oh boy. Anyway, so these notes I'd like to preface were all typed up prior to the Jets game, but obviously I did not anticipate being able to see the Jets game before recording this, so we will definitely be hitting on some before and after. But before that, a stat that I forgot to share was that, oh God, it disappeared. Oh no. Where'd it go? Oh goodness. How do I find this? God, Instagram is so hard to navigate. Okay, wait. Okay, we gotta go. We gotta go. We gotta go. It's loading so slow. Okay.
Stupid Zuckerberg making these hard apps to navigate.
Nathan MacKinnon. So it's very often that Nathan MacKinnon is compared to Connor McDavid and often has to play second best to him. Well, this stat states that Nathan MacKinnon is the second player in NHL history with multiple season opening point streaks of at least 13 games. Dom, do you know who the other player is?
No, actually.
It's Wayne Gretzky, Dom. The only person Nathan MacKinnon is playing second fiddle to is the great one himself.
Wow. I mean, I'm not surprised. I thought there was a possibility for someone like Crosby to have that, or maybe Ovi, but
no. Nathan
wow.
MacKinnon, Wayne Gretzky. That's it, baby. All right.
You know, that explains a lot, because that is why that stat was so important to you, because we've talked about it many times. Any stat that is Gretzky related is a huge statistic, and to be mentioned in the same sentence with that man is an accomplishment in itself.
Anyway, top right into it. Before the Jets game, it was stated that Alexander Georgiev would be starting against the Jets. And that made me ask, is this a make or break game for him? I can't say with a lot of certainty if that's a yes or a no, but he has been given to me a generous amount of second chances from an organization which I feel typically is very hit it and quit it on goaltenders. And at this current point in time, I don't have a timetable of how much longer Georgiev is here. If he makes it through the remainder of the season, he likely won't be back next year. And I do understand why they chose him against the Jets due to the playoff experience, and hopefully this gives him a chance to prove himself. However, I do feel that Georgiev's biggest enemy is not the other team on the ice, but himself. His mental game is arguably his weakest skill, and I'm by no means saying that he doesn't have mental fortitude, and I don't want to be overly harsh, as he's still a human being and is likely fully aware of the criticisms coming his way from both the fans, organizations, and media, or organization and media at large. And I still want to support him. But it feels like when this type of pressure rests on his shoulders, he can't deliver. And I do very much want him to prove me wrong. Well, following the Jets game, he did prove me wrong, and everybody, me included, owe Georgiev an apology right the fuck now. Go and say sorry to him however you can. He played out of his fucking gourd. The only reason the Jets won is A, because they managed to score on a 2-on-1 in the first 66 seconds. After that, no one else scored, no one else did anything, and Connor Hellebuck equally stood on his head, and the Jets, frankly, just played fantastic. But man, just to quickly speak on the game as a whole, the Avalanche, man, I'm so bummed that they lost because they played so well against a team that has been an absolute wagon to start the year, and that's how the Jets always are. But man, the Avalanche could have won this game. Just Connor Hellebuck always has a good way of playing against the Avs in the regular season. It's just when we reach the postseason, when it matters most. Never forget, Jets fans. You can beat us all you want in the regular season, but just remember. But anyway, it overall was a genuinely fantastic game by the Avalanche. It crushes me. I would have been fine with losing if Cale Makar and Nathan MacKinnon could have at least kept the point streaks going, but I knew they likely had to come to an end eventually. I just really wanted Cale to make it to that Bobby Orr number of 15, but stopped at 13. But overall, Georgiev played amazing. He really did. He made some absolutely mind-boggling saves. Now the question is, can he do it again? Because right now, Justus Annunen has arguably stolen the job for starting goaltender. So can Georgiev make a case to either A, become the starting goaltender again, or create a 1A, 1B combo with Justus Annunen? I don't know yet, because as great as he was in this game, and man, he was great. It was playoff Georgiev all over again against the Jets, just absolutely shutting the door on everything they tried to do, and this Jets team looks amazing. It was honestly really fun to watch just because it was a really good team that the Avalanche still managed to break through on. They just couldn't break through the final layer in the human brick wall that is Connor Hellebuck. And Dom, I don't know if I mentioned, I totally want your thoughts on like everything that I'm talking about here. So I'm sorry if I didn't preface that sooner, but yeah. That's
no worries. You were on a run
there,
and I had my time for a while there where I was tanking, so I wanted you to roll with it and just let it flow. But yeah, you firstly should not have to apologize. You've been the staunchest Georgiev defender, and you've done so reasonably, calling him out reasonably. You are not disparaging the man, the player. You are just disparaging the situation, and you are giving a constructive criticism. So I think be kind to yourself. For all of you who've been hating on Georgiev, y'all do owe him an apology, just as well as I complimented how Vanacek played against Columbus. I from what Corey is describing, I did not get to witness it myself, but I will have to go watch the highlights because it does sound like, other than the early goal, Georgiev played just that same way.
Absolutely bonkers saves.
So don't write this guy off yet. And this is something that is important to note. We talked about with the Jets. They are a defensive juggernaut, but they don't always score a ton. So if you have a solid goaltender and your team plays defense in front, these can be low-scoring games, and that is how the Jets like to play. So it is impressive that they can be so defensive and yet be 12-1 to start the year, which is wild. This is not the Jets of the NFL who can continue to shit the bed. No, these are the Winnipeg Jets, but you are correct. It all resets when it gets to the playoffs, and let's see if Hellebuck resets as well from the rough year last year. As far as Georgiev, I do think there is a reasonable cause for concern with the 1A, 1B with Justus Annunen. I do think also having Kaapo Kähkönen in the room is an added pressure, because now it is that, hey, we have a new 1B guy who has been the 1B on other teams before. So, you need to improve. Otherwise, if he's not playing up to his contract, or if he wants, remind me, when would be the next opportunity for a contract extension for
this
Georgiev?
Is the year. This is it.
This is the year.
The end.
So when we talk about needing to play up in the years that you want a big contract, I think ultimately this works in the Avs' favor. If he's having a down year and they choose to extend him, that would be the smart move, where it's just a year. We talk about goaltenders being up and down. Get him like a 2-3 year extension on the cheap, because then next year or later in the season, he might come back swinging big. Or if that is a cheaper, but it is a contract extension, perhaps that'll take something off his mind if there is the mental block. So just a thought for Avs faithful and for perhaps those in the GM office to consider is, you've seen what the guy can do in the past. Get him now while he's cheap and take that one thing off his mind, and he might just start playing better again, and you'll be having a goaltender who's outplaying his contract. But take it from me, the GM from the couch who knows nothing about negotiating salaries for starting hockey players. So that's just a thought I have. But you're right. If he continues to slump and lose the faith of the fans and the coaches and the Avs management, he will not be with the team next year. That is for certain.
Well, two things. One, we do tout that the Jets are often a very defensive oriented team, which is still true. But the Jets actually are currently the number one scoring team in the NHL right now. They have the most goals for of any team. They are scoring the most, which is strange to say the least. But just wanted to mention that. And on Georgiev, to me, and this is not an attack on the man at all, I genuinely don't see him coming back after the season. Even if he turns it around to an acceptable level, I just think the inconsistency is too much for the Avs to continue to waver on, especially while still being in a championship contention window. And unless he turns it around so hard that he ends up having like a Vezina caliber season, I really don't see him coming back next year.
You know, that is a fair point. He would need to turn it around to a huge degree, have consistent play like he did in that Jets game. Because if he plays like he did in the Jets game, that's a very different story than the rest of the season. So, no, I agree with you there. As far as Winnipeg is concerned, I am looking at it now, and they have a plus 33 goal differential on the year. The next closest, for those of you who are wondering with the fun fact, is the Carolina Hurricanes sitting at 10-2 in the Metropolitan.
Both very
Their goal
defensively
differential,
oriented teams. Very weird.
and yet their goal differential is plus 22. And if you think about it, I personally would think of Carolina, of the two, as having the better offense and more likely to be in higher scoring games just because of their goaltending being sometimes a bit shakier than what you see in Winnipeg. I see them winning those games 4-3 rather than 2-1 type of thing. So the fact that Winnipeg is up 11 goals on the next best team in the league as far as differential is concerned, because on record, Carolina is the next best team in the league, that is, wow, it is impressive. And I did not realize how well their offense has been performing, but clearly they're doing something right, at least to start the season. We'll see if they can continue to do that all throughout the year, or if injuries or anything else, knock on wood, we never root for it, will curtail their season.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, I mentioned Cale Makar, and during the Kraken game, actually, I'll say it right here. If you asked me, the number one guy the Avalanche cannot afford to lose right now, it's Cale Makar. Cale Makar avoided a close call in the Kraken game. He left during the second period, apparently pointing to his groin, and came out for a single shift in the third and then remained out for the rest of the game. However, he did end up traveling with the team to Winnipeg, and as a game time decision, as we saw, he did end up playing. And if there's anything wrong with him, he certainly didn't show it. Played like how he has the rest of the year and was a defensive nightmare for the Jets. Broke up multiple plays. He looked amazing out there. And Jared Bednar reflected confidence that Cale would play. And this is the coach who is certainly unafraid to keep guys off the roster, even if it means a weaker team on the ice, to ensure that no injuries are being made worse. But it didn't matter. Cale was out there. He looked amazing. Sad the point streak had to end. But talking about injuries, I wanted to talk about Gabriel Landeskog a little bit at length here one final time, and I'll explain what I mean by that here going forward. But it was stated that Gabriel Landeskog has supported a supposed setback, as stated by both TSN and former Avalanche beat writer Adrian Dater. But ultimately, to me, what does that mean? They say significant, but I take that word with a grain of salt because we never really know what any of it means. And I'll expand on this point later with another player. I've heard people use different terms with this news, but they're all very hollow because we are not the Avalanche organization or Gabriel Landeskog. It doesn't make it any less difficult to hear if it's any kind of setback. And it is true, because the truth of the matter is that the the window for him to return isn't indefinite. But I would actually, there was an article that came out literally right before we got on from Jared Bednar, and Bednar himself, the coach, stated, quote, "Setback could be fair. They just changed his course of attack for a little bit because of the way he was feeling. I don't think there was any one thing that happened or something where he just, like major changes to it. But he's been on the ice and off the ice. There's no timeline. It's just the change. It's just a change of course. I wouldn't call it a major setback or anything." So for all of you out there, those are the words from your coach. But all of that being said, I will always be a fervent supporter, as he is and always will be my favorite player. And I have already mentioned multiple times, I will not say he's done until he does. Because of the truth of the matter is we all, myself included, and all the glass half full optimists and all the negative Nellies out there, don't know. We won't have an answer until he steps back on the ice or he says he has to step away and hopefully then be hired by the organization. But if you're of the mindset out there that he's done and never coming back, and you're right, what do you do then? Are you satisfied that you got everyone like me with an "I told you so"? Do you feel satisfied even though the Avalanche are now left with a permanent Gabriel Landeskog-shaped hole that can never truly be filled again? And I'm not trying to be hostile, but I truly wonder. Now, I think I will attempt to make this the last time I make these points unless any significant news of Gabe comes across my radar, because I know I beat it to death, but it matters. And to Gabriel Landeskog, if you're out there, if you ever hear this, I believe in you. There are truly not words to express to you how much you mean to me, not even mentioning the Avalanche as a team in Colorado as a whole, but to me as both a player and a human being. You are truly incredible in ways beyond just athletics, and I hope I am blessed enough to shake your hand one day and have a significant conversation with you. I hope you can be here for many years to come and be a part of the next Cup parade. What I'm articulating now and what I likely want to say in my heart aren't even coming across the way that I want, but this is the best that I can do.
Well, man, that was beautiful. And I really do hope that he has the opportunity to hear that, because, even if that's not exactly the perfect delivery of what the message is that you want to come across, I think that still was a beautiful message nonetheless. And I think on behalf of other pure hockey fans, I think we're all rooting for him to be able to make that decision for himself and for him to be back on the ice for you. And as your friend, just me personally, I do hope that you will have that opportunity to speak with him, and not only hope, but I believe it will happen. I don't know. I just have that feeling. Maybe I am that optimist that you mentioned before, but I think your commitment to the Avalanche, to hockey, and just the true honesty of your love for the man as a player and for his contributions to the organization, but also to your life as a fan. I just have this feeling deep in my gut that you will have that opportunity to speak with him someday, and I really hope it happens.
Thank you. I do too. And like I said, it's more than just who he is as a player, but as a human being. Again, this is something else that I can't speak on too much because it's kind of private information, both for me and for Gabe himself. But I know a little bit more about who he is outside and off the ice. And to say that he is simply a wonderful person will never do that justice. He is truly just a great human, not just a hockey player. And he proves every day that he is more than just a man on the ice. So I hope beyond all hope that he can step back out there. But I digress. I did not
Absolutely.
mean
That's a great message. That too. That is important. I didn't highlight that in my response, but you're correct. Yeah. That is so true. It is more than just who he is on the ice, but he is, from everything we have seen. I have probably seen less than you have personally, but from everything I have seen, he is a true class act of a man and a good role model for anyone to emulate.
Unfortunately, everyone, I for some reason saved all the hard conversations for the end of the episode, because it does not get any easier from here, because let's talk about Nichushkin. I have been delaying this conversation until his return was a set reality, and now that's the case. So let's talk about Chu. He is slated to officially return on November 15th against the Capitals and is already practicing with the team. And Dom, I would love your thoughts on certain portions of this conversation, so let's jump right into it. To me, there are 2.5, 3-ish schools of thought with Valerian Nichushkin. I say that because one is really just a more extreme version of another. But one, and the one that I subscribe to, is let's get him back on the ice. I hope as a human being he is okay, and as a player he delivers. However, we'll watch him with bated breath until he fully earns back that trust. 2 is I respect the human being and that he's going through something, but I feel he is too much of a liability and I do not want him on the team any longer, which I can understand and I respect. The third, which is a more extreme version of the 2, is get that junkie off my team, which I don't respect as much. Here's the reality of the situation, no matter what you think. Valerian Nichushkin is still a part of the Avalanche organization, who have no plans to trade him. The players, front office, and staff have all welcomed him back, regardless of what they have said publicly or otherwise. He will be playing whether you like it or not. He is here. The Avalanche are a statistically better team when he is on the ice. That isn't an opinion. It is a mathematical fact. Now, I do think if I were Val, and spoiler, I'm not. So I can never truly understand how he feels, what he thinks, or is going through. But if I had to take a shot here, I would guess that he knows that this is the last shot, the last chance. If he makes the mistake again, it's a year suspension with no guarantee of reinstatement like there was this time. If he goes into stage 4, the Avalanche will likely do everything in their power to terminate his contract, and he will likely never play hockey with any NHL organization again. I believe he knows and he understands that. That being said, addiction is an evil beast that controls people beyond their wills and wants. So I can only hope that he has gotten the help that he needs, taken care of his demons, and can be the train that we all know he is. Now, there was a great article written by Arif Dean, current Avalanche beat writer, titled something along the lines of, "Do the Avalanche's recent struggles make it easier to welcome Nichushkin back?" Now, before I mention what he said or what I think, Dom, what do you think?
I think the whole point of the player assistance program is a second chance. I don't want to speak for anyone else, but I'm sure anyone who has had addiction in their family knows that that is impactful and that it is not a choice, knows that it can defy logic sometimes with the lack of rational decision making and how it can really take over, but it does not define a person. It is not their entire being. So I think the fact that, be it of his own accord and what generated him getting the assistance he needs or not, he ultimately agreed and went into the program. And I agree with you that he understands that this is probably his last shot. It was a severe enough offense that you don't get a third chance, you get the second chance. So I think the Avs fans should be somewhere between 1 and 2, like you said. I think option 3 you highlighted of being hateful and calling him a junkie is counterproductive, and hate begets hate, and that is not something useful. However, to be conscientious, to be aware, and have some cautious optimism, caution when welcoming him back, I think that is prudent because, like you said, it is not something necessarily fully within his control. I also agree that mathematically the team is better. So as the team is struggling with, I know you haven't covered the point, I think for some fans who are a bit more heartless and love the team more than they love the players, I think for some people it is going to be an impact where they can invite him back easier because they feel the need for him more. I think the organization's commitment to welcoming him back should also encourage fans to do the same. But yes, I ultimately think there is that level of caution, and if it gets worse, or if you, as you put with stage 4, I don't see him in the NHL, especially not with the Avalanche. If he did remain in the NHL, I would imagine it would involve some form of a dispute because the Avalanche would be losing a talented player without compensation, without a trade. So if someone else was to pick him up, I'd be interested to see how the league office handles that with what that team who chooses to pick him up is charged, or if they're even allowed to, if he is banned for a period of time where he cannot be signed. Um, and if that was the case, if then the Avs have access to his player rights or some scenario like that, like we see in other leagues, there's obviously a multiple evolution or series of questions I could hypothesize for this, but ultimately focusing on the here and now, the important thing is he got the help he needed, he's back, and he's given a second chance. And we don't always have the chances to get second chances in life, but I think for anyone who's made a mistake, even no matter what scale it is, a second chance can be a lifeline. It is a greatly appreciated, or it should be greatly appreciated, and taken with humility. But also, as someone, if you have the opportunity to give a second chance and have that impact, that positive impact on someone's life, you should not shy away from taking it. So, as fans, I think my ultimate answer to your question is have a level of prudence and caution, but give him at least the benefit of the doubt for now, and give him the real second chance, because that is the right thing to do, the better thing to do as a human, regardless of your love for the Avs, for hockey. I think that is a higher moral principle than whether or not he had that addiction.
And well said. And ultimately, it goes, we're above hockey at this point. This is not just about a person on a team, but this is about a human being. And I think Patrick Laine, I've gone back to, is such a great advocate for this, that as important as hockey is to me, behind hockey are human beings who are out there playing the game, who have thoughts, feelings, and lives just like the rest of us. And we have to remember that without them, the game would not be possible. And they're not just autonomous robots who are out there playing for our enjoyment.
Yeah, you are absolutely correct. This is, yes, we do take joy from it, but the human being comes first. And it's the same thing with Landeskog. Yes, we want to see him back, but we want to just see him okay and healthy and happy more than anything. I think that it's for any situation, any player, it's important to remember that that is first. This person is a person. Hockey, while that is how we know and see them, that is not their entire life. And that they also have family, they have loved ones, they have friends who do know them more personally, who would be impacted by this as well. And we want the best for him and for them. So that is an important area to focus on. If you are having doubts, or if you don't want to trust him, maybe consider that, and that give him that, maybe that helps you give him a second chance, to whoever is listening and might feel that way.
Well, thank you, Dom. And to now answer my own question, me and Arif Dean are of the same mindset, that I think it makes it easier for both the team and the fans to welcome him back. And just from what I was hearing at the Kraken game, there seemed to be a genuine excitement rather than contempt at the prospect of Val rejoining the team soon. People were murmuring about the improvements that are likely to come or to become reality with Val in the lineup. As I've already mentioned, fans are nervous and a little frustrated right now for a variety of reasons that we've discussed, and you can noticeably feel it in the building. But when you have someone you know can produce and be a force in the lineup, it's especially exciting, especially when everyone who can produce is fucking injured. Now, I do think that once playoffs roll around, and if everything has gone right, people will be rightfully nervous and watching Val and the Avalanche as a whole very closely, because it will take him being there to help the Avalanche win another cup. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He is genuinely one of the most important players on the team. However, just as I said with Gabe, we don't know. We have articles. We have what he said in that weird Russian interview, what the organization has said, or rather hasn't said. But we all don't know. And we can all make the foolish assumptions. We can make all the foolish assumptions we want as to what the truth is, but we don't know what the truth is. And we never will. It's frustrating. I feel the same. But we have to, fortunately or unfortunately, accept that fact. And that we will never likely get answers until everyone on this current roster is long retired and they make a documentary about it in the future. In short, it's easy to pass judgment. I have certainly done it, and hell, I'll likely do it on the podcast now and in the future. It's something that everyone does. But we must be careful and remember, as I continue to preach, and Dom has as well, Val is a human being, like everyone sitting in the audience watching, who goes through things like we all do, that only he will ever fully understand and know the truth of.
I think that was perfectly well said. I have nothing more to add to that, Corey.
Well, thank you. All I can say is I'm excited to wear my Nichushkin jersey again. I've held off on wearing it until he's back in the roster, but I'm excited to slap it on the 15th. Well, it's time to end with our fun fact. Time to turn it around a little bit, have some fun to end this nice, beefy episode. Well, here's your Avalanche fun fact of the day, everybody. Since we were talking about offsides with the goofy offside review that just occurred, I figured we could visit a long time ago in Avalanche history, a time when Matt Duchene played for the team.
Ooh, back in spooky season.
Dom, did you know there was a time before the offside review / coaches challenge existed?
I actually did.
And
but please, educate the fans on the year.
Did you know that the Avalanche, and more specifically Matt Duchene, are responsible for that rule?
That specifically, I don't recall.
Well, during a game against the Nashville Predators in the 2012-2013 season on February 18th, Matt Duchene scored a goal that was beyond noticeably offside, to put it lightly. Noticeable to everyone except the officials. 19 months later, the NHL instituted a rule that would allow coaches to challenge missed offside plays that resulted in goals or goalie interference. This rule obviously worked perfectly and had no glaring issues whatsoever. Except it did. And to expand on the fallout of this fact, Dom, not only would this play by the Avalanche come back to bite them in the ass later, but would result in the fates of both our team, Avs and Sharks, being intertwined forever. In Game 7 of the 2019 Western Conference second round, the goal that would have tied the game was called back because Gabe Landeskog was too slow getting back to the bench. I remember this call to this day. I remember how long it took to review and how fucking stupid it was because Gabe had literally nothing to do with the play to influence it in any way. But because he was skating for the door rather than somewhere else on the bench, he was offside. And well, you know the rest, Dom. And I digress because I can honestly go on and on about this all night. But your thoughts on it from the other end of things, Dom?
Well, I would say that it's obviously easier when you're on the right side of the call. The Sharks were on the right side of not one but two offsides just this evening against Minnesota. So it does have value if you care about accuracy. For other sports with VAR and soccer, for example, it is to get the calls right. And so as a fan of a team, we want the call to go our way. As a fan of the sport or what's fair, what's right, we do like having that ability now to challenge because you are correct. If Matt Duchene was so visibly offside that the NHL felt the need to make a statement and write a rule about it, then it was a problem before that, or there must have been more than just one case. They typically don't make entire rules for just one case. Perhaps it was the most prominent
the
or
most
obvious
egregious, we'll say.
Yeah. So that, there is a need, and that I think is established. I think ultimately, too, it's been balanced because the coach's challenge, there is still that element of risk. It is not a free thing that we're just slowing down the game all the time. It is the risk of, if you want to challenge and you lose, you are going to concede a power play right then and there. Just like if you're challenging certain calls, right? Aren't there certain calls that can be challenged for like penalties? Correct me if I'm wrong. For like the degree I think they review majors now, but they used to.
They review the majors, but it's not like the bench who challenges those specifically.
For some reason, I thought the bench used to challenge that before the reviews were mandated, but I could be incorrect.
I can't say it with certainty, but to be honest with you, I could debate offsides all night, and I'm going to hold off because this episode is already long as it is, so I will cut myself off there, and we will definitely revisit this at some point.
You know what I will say as a closing statement that we can cover, or it could be a question in the future, is should there be a statute to limitations based on when an offside occurs in the grand scheme of a play?
Yes.
If it's 60 seconds before, 90, 30, is there a point where after such amount of time after an offsides, we call natural progression of the game, and the whole play, the goal should stand if it occurs, because that time is lost for that team who is responsible for scoring the goal. So I do think there's a question there. I would stand by that. I think having the offsides challenge is a good thing, but I think there is an argument for a statute to limitations in game for when that no longer applies.
Well, the clock is counting down to the final horn. We really appreciate you taking the time to listen to this episode of the Captain Avalanche Fancast. Did you know there is a comment section where you can leave your thoughts and questions? If you have something you want to know about the Avalanche, Sharks, or just hockey in general, leave it below and we'll be happy to try and answer it. There is also a unique poll for you to interact with every episode. The best thing you can do, if you like what we're doing here, is to follow us on whatever platform you're using and share this podcast everywhere you can, whether that's with your mouse or your mouth. I'm Captain Avalanche Corey.
And this is Dom from the Tank.
Thanks, everyone.